All right, good morning. I'm Jeff Hammond, Executive Director at International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. Thank you so much for joining us for the April Town Hall. This Town Hall is sponsored by National Geothermal. National is out of Texas. They've been doing ground heat exchanger installations for decades, and they were our diamond sponsor at the 2023 annual conference. So we appreciate their sponsorship for this Town Hall. I will go through just a few IGSHPA updates, and then we will start the town hall. It's a different format this time. It's truly a town hall. So we have a cast of celebrities that we are counting on to make this quite an interesting town hall. That after my slides, we do not have a presentation this time. This town hall is open for discussion. So we'll be talking a little bit about where we've been as an industry, where we are now, and where we're going. And we'll also have involvement from our brand new committee, which I'll talk about here shortly. So before that, let's talk just about the IGSHPA latest news. And if you'd like to present at one of our town halls or dig deeper webinars, you go to the website. We do still have openings for 2024. So if you're interested, please go to the training and events calendar, fill out an abstract, and we'd love to have you speak at one of our webinars. Our research conference is coming up very quickly. It's the end of May in Montreal, May 28th through the 30th. So if you'd like to go to the research conference, you'll find about 50 papers. Right now, I believe 35 have been finalized, and the other 15 or so are still in the works. But it'll be quite a list of topics for sure. Registration's online now. The program guide is online as well. Exciting news on the next IGSHPA annual conference. We're moving it back just a few months. Our last conference was in December 2023 in Vegas. This next one will be about 3 months later. We'll be in Champaign, Urbana, Illinois, March 11th through the 13th, 2025. We're partnering with the Geothermal Alliance of Illinois. And it's really going to be a neat venue. It's right on the campus of University of Illinois. So it is a venue where we have reserved the entire conference space. And there's also a hotel room block there, which is available now. It's a smaller hotel. So if you're interested, you may want to book your reservation soon. Registration will be available later on this month or early May. We do have sponsorship opportunities available right now as of this morning, as a matter of fact, that just came online. And you'll start to see information about conference guide advertising and exhibit space availability in May. So if you happen to go to the IGSHPA website, you'll find information on sponsorship. This just got opened up today. And I think they'll go quickly if last year is any indication. So check that out if you would like to sponsor the conference. I'm proud to say that April is National Geothermal Month, and the responsible parties for this are the what we're calling the ACT Committee, the Advocacy and Communications Taskforce, who organized this month's town hall, as a matter of fact. So the National Geothermal Month will focus on a different theme each week. The first week is sustainability, as you can see, and then we talk about efficiency and so forth. It all ties into Earth Day, and so that's why April was picked. But the all of the ACT members have done a fantastic job. Hopefully, you're already seeing posts on social media and talking about this really neat event. If you haven't seen our Geo Outlook magazine, it's been back since last fall. There was a January edition, and the next edition is July. We have had some challenges with our email lists, and so if you're not receiving the Geo Outlook magazine, please make sure you send us an email. And pardon the background noise. We also have a new member marketing resources page on the member portal. So check that out if you haven't been there. Our new membership program has just recently been released. Lots of new levels starting beginning of this year. We have listing for just listing only, directory listing, all the way up through benefactor memberships. And we've had quite a few new ones like retirees and student rates. You will get CEUs towards your IGSHPA certifications for this town hall. Just make sure you send your name and email in the chat, and we'll record those. Also, if you're watching this as a recording, then you'll want to submit this webinar code. This is not necessary if you're on the webinar live, but if you're watching this as a recording, send your email and this code, and you'll get credit for it for watching that recording. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. If you would, since everybody's mics are open, please make sure that you mute your mic if you're not speaking. And we will be recording this session for viewing later on. A little bit more housekeeping. I'll skip this slide this time because the mics are open, but if you're using the chat function, sometimes you will have to agree to that. We won't go through that this time. And just one more slide and we will start our exciting town hall this month. The upcoming presentation presents the opinion of the presenter and does not represent any official position, opinion, or endorsement of any products or services by IGSHPA or its members. Since there's not a presentation this time, this is really pertaining to the panel's comments. IGSHPA town halls and Dig Deeper webinars are for member updates and education on the latest information in the geothermal heat pump industry. They're not meant to endorse one technology or brand over another. It's the presenter's responsibility to disclose any conflict of interest or position that may arise in the content of the webinar. And with that, normally I introduce a speaker, but because we have panelists this morning, I won't do that. And again, thanks to NYSERDA Geothermal for sponsoring this webinar. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll all be able to see each other this time. So welcome to the April Town Hall. Would anyone from our ACT committee want to start off, or shall we just open it up for where we've been?
Hi, Jeff.
Oh, hi, Donna. Thank you for kicking us off. Donna Kyler.
Wasn't planning on being seen today. I am one of the chairs on the ACT committee. My name is Donna Kyler. I'm with Indiana Geothermal in Indiana and New York Geothermal Supply in New York. And we have just really been trying to push geothermal with everything that's going on right now. The heat is really up for geothermal. So we were super excited about it. And we started reaching out to anyone and everyone to help start pushing out the National Geothermal Month. So we wanted to do a panel of experts so you could chat about it and talk about a little bit about where we've been and what we see our future to be, because it's looking really awesome. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Donna. I appreciate it. All right, so why don't we kick off, since our theme here is where we've been, where we are now, and where we're going. There's a lot of history here, and we're fortunate to have a lot of that history. I wonder if we could just start with introductions of our panel. Steve, do you want to start off? Sure. Steve Smith.
Yeah, sure will, Jeff. I'm Steve Smith, CEO of Enertech Global. We manufacture Hydron Module, GeoComfort, and Tetco brands, and I'll leave the rest to discuss in our past where we've been next. So I'll pass it to the next.
All right, Donovan. She might.
Yes, is it Kris?
Who are you asking for?
Kris, probably Kris. No.
Go ahead, Kris.
All right, I guess that's me. I'm Kris Kyler, Indiana Geothermal, and now also New York Geothermal. I've been doing geothermal for almost 30 years now. Started doing it back in 1988. Actually worked for Tom Miller before it was GeoFlow Products. So we are a equipment distributor and an earth loop contractor in Indiana, and have owned HVAC businesses in the past also.
Great. Thank you, Kris. All right, Kortney, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Kortney Lull with Midwest Geothermal. We are an installing contractor based in Grand Rapids, Michigan, but we install closed loop geosystems across the country. Literally have been from LA to New York and a whole lot of places in between. And I also serve on the IGSHPA Board of Directors.
Thank you, Kortney. Morgan?
Hey everybody, I'm really excited to be here with you today. I'm Morgan Hood, and I am representing VGS. We're a small gas utility in Vermont who are exploring incorporating community geothermal systems into our existing business model. I'm also the co-founder of the Utility Network Geothermal Collaborative. It's a pretty casual group of gas utilities who are all in various stages of exploring geothermal, doing work similar to what we're doing at my utility. Right now, there are 23 gas utilities who are looking at how we can incorporate geothermal into our offerings. And we represent about half of all the people paying for natural gas in the country right now. So if we can figure this out, I think we have the ability to really expand our impact quickly. And I'll pass it along.
Great. Thank you, Morgan. Donovan, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm back. Boy, can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
I can't believe I got bounced off just as we got started. Donovan Gordon. Well, for the last 8.5 years or so, I was Director of Clean Heating and Cooling at NYSERDA. And recently, my title changed and my overall focus and responsibility. I'm now Director of Community Thermal Networks. So focusing on the large scale thermal energy networks and large infrastructure projects, mostly including geothermal.
Very cool. We have also Christine Hoffer from New York Geo and Kathy Ridley from Geothermal Alliance of Illinois. I don't believe they were able to join us this morning, but they're integral parts of our ACT committee. So I want to recognize them for all their work. And speaking of that, I'm pretty energized after coming back from the New York Geo conference yesterday. So, hopefully we see lots of good outcome there. So I'm going to turn it back over to our ACT committee. Donna, Sally, do you want to get started?
You're up, Sally.
And I'm sorry, Steve Kep, I didn't ask you to introduce yourself. Apologize for that.
No, that's okay. Very pleased to be with you. I'm more or less the coordinator for the ACT, the task force. I also function in that role for the newly formed IGSHPA Utility Committee. So for utilities who are on the call, please feel free to reach out to us to explore participation in our utility committee. For those of you who have been in the industry for a lot of years, you know that the utility industry, particularly electric utilities at that time, put the geothermal heat pump industry on the map. And the geothermal heat pump industry owes a debt of gratitude to electric cooperatives and IOUs across the country who did a lot of that important groundbreaking work. But we're in the process of reintroducing ourselves to the utility industry. Very pleased to see the gas utility industry getting involved, and looking forward to a bright future. And very excited to hear what everybody has to say today. Thank you.
Very cool. Thanks so much. All right, back over to you, Donna. Sorry.
I didn't know I had to talk today. Sally, do you have something planned?
I don't really have anything planned. We wanted to kind of keep this pretty casual and informal and really just get folks to start talking with this incredible panel that we've put together. So to start off, I think we need to talk to Steve and Donovan about the roots of this industry and where we've started.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. I'll start. And again, it's a pleasure to be with you all this morning. We'll go all the way back for me personally, back to 1983 when I started at Electric Cooperative, Southwestern Electric Co-op in Greenville, Illinois. We were 3 cents a kilowatt hour, and in short order went to about 12 cents a kilowatt hour, being involved in a nuclear plant. So here's a young kid trying to figure out how to keep people in the gold medallion home, ceiling cable, baseboard heat with air conditioning, and I stumbled across geothermal. And that passion started right then. So I know there's so much passion and history in this group on the panel, and definitely in all the attendees here. But that geothermal bug bit me back then at the co-op, and fell in love with it, and learned about it, found out all I could, and that passion just went further into the G&T we belong to. Started a distribution company in '87, and I worked that from '87 till we started Enertech in '96. But where we've been, what I want to cover is where we've been. And back in those days and through the 90s, we had so much utility and cooperative support. And I feel we've lost that over the years. But now here, Morgan, we have 23 gas utilities looking into this. Jeff, you and I would have fell over completely backwards in, say, 1990 if somebody was said a gas utility was interested. So I'm looking to that future, but we have to also look at where we've been. And what you've asked of me to cover is that we lost a lot of co-op and utility support over the years, and so it's really coming back, and we've got to bring it back. I think we took it for granted. The industry, I feel we did as a company. I feel we did as an industry, and then there's this technology called heat pump, air source heat pump, and they were able to brand themselves as a cold climate heat pump, and heat pumps are great. But geothermal is the cold climate heat pump. We don't even know what climate it is. So we have got to work on the things we did in the past and bring that back to today. To close out here, back when I started, we now have almost 3 generations of folks. Back to the people I talked to when I was at the co-op in my 20s are now grandparents or great grandparents. We've got 2 to 3 generations we have to educate. And so, where we've been has been a great track record. Geothermal works each and every time you design it and install it properly, every time. So now, how do we bring that message? So I will turn it over to Donovan. And again, thank you all.
Okay, Steve, since you went back to 1983, now you're aging both of us here. In 83, I started in a totally different industry. I was in the cable industry on the media and entertainment side, starting at HBO. So that's where I was. Fast forward to around 2008, as we all know what happened 2008, 2009, the Great Recession. So my 25 plus years career in cable came to a halt, and I had to reinvent myself, and I picked renewable energy and started in solar, then got intrigued by geothermal by going to a ribbon cutting it was a new construction of a community center. I think it's Newcastle, Long Island. It was called the Yes We Can Community Center, and they were heated and cooled with geothermal. So I didn't know anything about geothermal, so I went there to the event and met a gentleman named John Reiner. I don't know if John's on the call now. He was at PW Grosser. So, this thing is interesting, man. What did I learn more about geothermal? He said, well, we just started an organization called the Long Island Geothermal Energy Organization. Want to come to one of our meetings? So, I guess I can. And I did. And I started volunteering with Long Island Geo. And they started to grow a little bit. The geothermal started really taking off. And actually, Long Island, Suffolk County, Long Island was the first, I think still the only county in the state that has a geothermal permitting code that was passed back in, I think, 2011, 2012, somewhere around that time. And it started to grow. And they said, well, now we really need somebody to help manage this organization. So they, as you know, what happened in the Great Recession, a lot of people lost their jobs. I was one of them. But they brought me on to be the executive director of Long Island Geo. So I was the executive director of the first geothermal energy organization in New York State. And then we wanted to go statewide and go up to Albany and start, I guess I worked for NYSERDA. Well, I was before NYSERDA, I can say lobbying. But we couldn't go up there as a New York State or as a Long Island organization. We were saying we want to represent New York State. So we reached out to some upstate contractors like John Chavaco, John Manning, and Jens Panikow and others, and started New York Geo. And I'm a founding member of New York Geo. And in 2015, New York State created a position. Originally was called Director of Renewable Heating and Cooling, and then I subsequently changed it to Clean Heating and Cooling. NYSERDA hired me as the first director, and I guess a couple weeks ago, that title changed, so one and only. And I was brought in to help build the heat pump market. Yes, air source, all heat pumps, but focus on ground source heat pumps that came out of the industry. And at being at New York Geo yesterday, the 10th anniversary, we've taken heat pumps, particularly ground source heat pumps, from really nascent, negligent, to now building thermal energy networks. So in the 10 years, or actually 8 years, we've really made significant progress thanks to the efforts of, New York Geo and the folks running the board and the folks running there. So I'll pause there and answer questions later.
That's great. That's great. Donna, Sally, you want to move on to our next topic?
Yeah, so now we're going to kind of look at where we are as an industry, and we are kind of going to look to Kortney and Kris as folks who are out there, I'd say on the ground, in the ground, installing these systems all over the country.
Kris, you want to go first?
Sally, ladies first. Kortney? Sorry,
Sure.
Kortney.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll kind of talk. So I've been doing this, I can't believe it's been 16 years. But it's been kind of a crazy ride. I've seen it where there's this big boom. We were doing great. And then the market kind of fell off 2015, 2016. We heard it was going to kind of revitalize a few years ago, but this feels different, right? The industry feels like we are just poised to do some incredible things. It's still crazy as much as we travel to see the differences in every state and the reasons people are choosing to use this technology from college campuses. It's still a little, I'm still a little in awe of how many college campuses are choosing to make this switch. And it is, pun intended, I guess, so cool, right? To see these universities make such an investment in our technology and use them across their campus. I mean, we can all remember when Ball State went Geo. I had so much fun attending a presentation that they had done. I super nerded out in the ability that they can see the incoming and outgoing water temperatures across their fields and into their buildings. And now we're seeing major universities pick up that and do it for their campuses as well, from Princeton to more in the Ivy League to community colleges and everybody in between. It is incredible to see across the country why they're making the choice, whether it's for renewable reasons or school districts that are making the choice, because frankly, it's just easier to maintain. There's no one true size that fits all. And I feel like today we do an even better job of having a conversation and asking those questions as to why they're making that choice. This feels incredible. This time in this industry just feels awesome. We're on the precipice of some really cool stuff.
Great. Kris, what's your perspective?
Yeah, so that was a great perspective from Kortney on the consumer side. I have a little different perspective on the equipment side, and I'm sure Steve can attest to this. Back in the mid 80s, we used to have to unbox the equipment and test run it before we took it to the customer's place, because you couldn't count on the equipment running and functioning. It would come miswired from the factory. You didn't have any downflow equipment. Everything was very almost prototype that we were installing early on. Now we've got nice mainstream, well-made equipment from all the manufacturers, high efficiency. It's really fantastic. But back in the I sold Kyler Brothers Heating and Cooling in 2006. So the last year I owned Kyler Brothers, we did 160 thermal system installs that year. No utility incentives, no tax credits, no anything. And I'm not saying that the tax credits weren't a big help, but the product stands on its own. You don't need these incentives to sell the product. As Kortney mentioned, or someone mentioned, we've had utilities come and go as far as the loop installs. We used to have a big REMC that was paying to put earth loops in back when I first started, and they went away. Then recently we've gotten into RMCs doing it again. So it's kind of exciting to see this new wave coming through with this re-energizing of the geothermal market.
exciting stuff. So it sounds like what's currently happening is kind of predicting the future. Nice transition, I guess. And we want to put Morgan on the spot here for maybe talking about the future. I know she's just a bit passionate about that.
Yeah, a little bit. Very quickly, some personal background, because my personal background isn't interesting enough to occupy too much time. But my whole professional background has been in energy efficiency and decarbonization. And hippie do-gooder type, I never for the life of me would have thought I'd end up working for a gas utility. But in 2019, the gas utility here in Vermont announced a climate plan to achieve net zero by 2050 with some incremental goals along the way. And a lot of other gas utilities have done the same. So gas utilities are under a lot of pressure to decrease their carbon footprint. I mean, we are delivering a fossil fuel, and it's pressure coming from our policymakers, the utility regulators. It's pressure, of course, coming from our customers. So Vermont Gas, VGS, brought me in. I haven't had to learn a single thing about natural gas, really. They brought me in just to work on expanding their portfolio of services. So how do we, as a gas utility, rebrand ourselves to be more of a thermal service provider? And to that end, we've done a bunch of weird stuff. Like we've started we install and service and lease and sell electric heat pumps, for example. Our thinking is if we're in a customer's home and they want a thermal energy solution, we want to be the people to provide it to them. And we want to hold on to this customer who we'd otherwise lose as they may work their way down that path toward decarbonization. So that was where geothermal entered the picture for us. We just couldn't think of a more potentially impactful way to provide our customers with a decarbonized energy solution. And I live in a very progressive state. We serve communities right now where there are ordinances starting to be integrated into the town planning, for example. We're seeing a lot of residential new construction is required to not rely on natural gas or cover 85% of their thermal energy needs with renewable energy sources. So these are customers we wouldn't be able to attain otherwise. So more and more frequently, we're seeing that not only does it make sense for my, do-gooder heart to be pursuing community-scale geothermal, it also is starting to make real sense from a business perspective. This is the only way a gas company like mine that has no intention of ever extending the natural gas pipeline again, it's the only way we're going to expand our customers, which becomes more and more important as we are seriously looking at all the customers we're going to lose who get off that natural gas pipeline. And then from the gas utility perspective, a lot of it seems like a no-brainer. We're still very reliant on all the technical expertise around geothermal that exists within the industry. We don't have that, but we understand energy infrastructure. We understand long-term investments in infrastructure. We understand the importance of monitoring and servicing infrastructure for peak performance. So it's kind of like we have this workforce that we really value. I know with my organization, the people who are out there servicing the thermal energy needs, so we have people installing in-home equipment, working on the pipeline, lots of people out there facing customers. They don't, fall asleep at night having passionate romantic feelings about natural gas. They take pride in their work because they're able to offer customers a safe and affordable thermal energy solution. So now if we're able to offer customers a safe, affordable, decarbonized energy solution, it's just worlds better. So we've got, as I mentioned, 23 gas utilities who are all in sort of different stages of exploration, from having pilots in the ground with some of our New York and mostly Massachusetts gas utilities, to utilities who are in those early exploratory stages of looking into this work, largely because their political environment is dictating it or their customers are asking for it. We bonded together as a group in late 2022, and we thought that we recognized we had a lot to learn about the regulation needs required with a community scale geothermal system, about the technology, about potential business and financial models. And the thinking was we would learn faster if we learned together and shared resources. So if one of us does something and we fall flat on our faces, hopefully that means the others don't have to do the same. If one of us has a grand success and figures it out, that enables the rest of us to do that faster. We're not all learning in a vacuum, and we're able to combine our voices now. So that's something that would be interesting to talk to this group about in particular. We've got 23 utilities who are looking to see community geothermal expanded. What needs to be in place? Who do we need to have working for us to help enable this to occur? And now that we've got 23 voices of some really large utilities, we hold a tiny bit of sway. So how do we use that for the greater good? And yeah, we're interest is growing like gangbusters. Just speaking of the trend I'm seeing nationally and where I think it's going, we're seeing bills being contemplated and passed with greater frequency. This week, I unfortunately had to miss New York Geo because I had to go down to our state house and provide testimony on a geothermal bill that is being contemplated right now. So we're all busy with that type of work. And again, in 2022, we started it off with, I think it was 7 gas utilities who were just thinking about geothermal. And now we're at 23. I think we've got almost 24. We've got the DOE participating in our calls. We've got a bunch of other organizations who want to take part and help us in our work. And I anticipate that group is just gonna grow and grow. So that's where we're at today.
That's a great future, Morgan. Thank you for
It's pretty
enlightening us.
exciting stuff.
And that may be a good transition, if it's okay with you, Donovan, to talk about your new title, because it certainly ties in nicely.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I'm fortunate to be in a state where we have the support from the highest level, from the governor, from the legislature, and also they put the money where their mouth is. We've authorized billions of dollars over the last 10 years or so to help advance geothermal through the Clean Energy Fund and others. So we've passed, various laws, the signature laws, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, but I spoke about this yesterday. So Morgan, sorry you missed that, but yeah, I went through all of the things that New York State has done collectively to help advance the geothermal industry, from passing laws, from setting policies and regulations and programs. So as I mentioned, when I first started, it was broad clean heating and cooling. We had heat pump incentives for both, air source and ground source heat pumps. Doing a couple hundred. I mean, the industry knows what they do in New York State. But the strategy for NYSERDA has changed over time, and that hence my new title, where we wanted to move from a building by building or appliance by appliance approach, we're switching out onesies and twosies, to now looking at a community scale, where we're trying to do hundreds, if not thousands, of events, going through communities. And yes, of course, right now the low-hanging fruit are campuses, but we have to start someplace and move beyond. It's easier. But we launched a PON, Program Opportunity Notice, back in 2021. It's now closed, but we're going to open a new one soon. It's called Community Heat Pump Systems, Community Heat Pump System Program, and it beat every metric that we had set for it. I mean, it was successful far beyond our wildest dreams, and now we're support over 50 feasibility studies, about 12 detailed designs, and we're now up to 6 projects that we're supporting for construction. 2 that are actually in construction right now, and it happen to be 2 of the largest multifamily geothermal new construction projects in New York State ever. Both of them in Brooklyn, and the other 4 I can't talk about because we're in contract negotiations. So hopefully over the next few months we'll be able to announce those. And now I'm just pleasantly surprised at how just the concept of thermal energy networks and community heat pump systems have just taken off. And then they passed a law for Utility Thermal Energy Networks and Jobs Act, which now utilities have submitted their proposals, and I think a lot of them got approved to move on to the next stage. I haven't read it came out yesterday. I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet. So the utilities are engaged and fully and excited about this. And again, we're going to launch a new pond within the next month or two to now take it to the next level. The first pond was a pilot program, just see what's out there. We had no idea. Again, pleasantly surprised. Now the next one is more of a market development. We kind of know what we know now, and we want to have a pond that we get projects that are designed in a way that we think is best suited to minimize the grid impact and obviously reduce carbon footprint and create good paying jobs, because part of the Utility Act is prevailing wage, labor peace agreements, apprenticeship programs, pre-apprenticeship programs. So it is called Utility Thermal Energy Networks and Jobs Act. So it is about creating jobs and transitioning gas workers and other utility workers over to this new clean energy economy.
Very exciting stuff. Before we open up for questions, do any of our panelists want to weigh in on what we've talked about so far? We have about 20 minutes for questions, which is great. Anything from our prestige panel at this point?
Well, I actually have a question for Morgan. If I was trying to get my gas company in Indianapolis engaged, how would I go about that?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Who is your gas utility?
It's Citizens Gas. So they
Okay.
own the water and the sewer and the gas lines.
I would say I don't know if you have any contacts there, but we're not actively recruiting people. So far, we've just had people who've expressed interest and joined us. But I think myself and my fellow co-founder, if there would be more than happy to talk to someone at Citizens about what we're seeing nationally and what's motivating gas utilities to undertake this work and what we're learning as we move forward. So we're always, although we're not recruiting, we're always happy to educate and fold people into our group if they're interested. Yeah, otherwise the gas utilities we've seen who have been interested have largely been, they've been reaching out because they're responding to customer interest and state pressure. So I think if you could make that initial contact and point them in our direction, we would be happy to engage further. And we can take this offline too, if there's any way that I can help.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments from our panel before we open up for questions?
The only thing I think I'd like to add or throw out there is that, as we, all this opportunity we have coming at us, and through IGSHPA, Geo, through all of us with all this passion, in this meeting and across this country, one of the key, I think, one of the key things we need to talk about and toss out there, whether in this meeting or in the future, is, again, if the more we promote and the more we get folks interested in geothermal on the commercial side, on the residential side, is that the infrastructure. Kortney, you only have so many rigs. There's we have contractors' biggest issue is, how do I find more help? So I want us to be eyes wide open that when we promote and we get people interested, it fizzles out because they can't find someone to properly install it, or the contractors can't find good help, and so that to me is a big issue for us moving forward. And I don't want to be the downer in the group, but that is a that is one of our biggest hurdles is, once we drum up all this interest, how do we get the loops in? How do we get the equipment installed? I promise you that us manufacturers will make more. We'll make equipment. We'll find a way to make equipment, but it's got, like you said, we got to have holes in the ground, and contractors got to have the support to get them in. So just kind of tossing that out there.
I bet Kortney and Kris have plenty of comments on that. If you want to weigh in.
Yeah, Jeff, I actually have another concern. Not to be a downer either, but when the tax credit went away in 2017, we were braced for a 50% loss in business, and we ended up having more like a 70% loss in business, and it nearly closed our doors. And if we go back to 2006, when I was running Kyler Brothers, we were doing 160 geothermal systems a year, no tax credits, no incentives. Well, you leap forward till today, or even more importantly, to 10 years from now, when the tax credit is set to sunset again. How many people in the industry are you going to have that has ever sold a geothermal system without a tax credit? And that was the issue that I was having, was that I'd go to my customer and said, hey, what's going on? Your sales have really dropped off. And their answer would be, well, there's no tax credit now. What's the point? I'm like, well, what's the point? That's your sales presentation. What's the point? And so I'm very concerned for the industry. Now, hopefully I'm retired 10 years from now, so it's not going to be my problem. But we've got to get the consumers interested in purchasing this product for reasons beyond the tax credit, and the guys out selling the product have to be able to push the benefits of the product beyond the tax credit.
Yeah, Kris, and what I'll add to that is going back to Morgan, having the utilities build infrastructure is going to be helpful. So now
that'll be huge. That'll be huge. Absolutely. Yes, I agree. That'll be huge.
Anything else from our panel before we? I see we have a question already. Rob, please go ahead.
Thanks, Jeff. This is really tying into a couple of things that Morgan and Steve Smith said, and that is the combination of utilizing the power of the utility company to help us bridge that gap of getting energy to the building. And the gas companies do know how to do that. My question for you, Morgan, in your marketplace, I heard you say that you're installing heat pumps, leasing, doing those types of things to get heat pumps into buildings. How is that engaging with the existing HVAC contractor community? Because that's one thing that we want to make sure that as the almighty utilities come in, that we're not alienating the infrastructure we have, because those contractors that are installing traditional or air-to-air source heat pumps, they're fully capable of installing a ground source heat pump as long as the loop infrastructure is taken care of for them. That's the biggest hurdle for adoption. And we know that as we look across the landscape of our marketplace, we have a lot of contractors. We don't have to rely on our current base of contractors to be able to scale up to handle the volume. We need to bring more contractors into the business to work alongside the utilities. So how does that look like that's happening in your marketplace?
That's a really good question. I don't think we're unique in that we have a really pronounced contractor shortage in our state. And our state has some very ambitious, the state has a net zero by 2050 goal with incremental goals along the way. They have a really ambitious plan for getting there, and it involves a lot of air source heat pumps and heat pump water heaters. But now it's also now they've also incorporated a ground source heat pumps into how they'll achieve their goal. When we look at the state's goals, the number of heat pumps that need to be installed to achieve the carbon reduction, the carbon savings that we're looking to accomplish, we know we have nowhere near as many contractors as it's going to take to accomplish that goal. So we're very sensitive about competing with existing workforce We honestly, if we had more contractors than we knew what to do with right now in Vermont, I think we'd be getting a lot of pushback from our state regulators saying, you know, let them have this business. You as a utility might have an advantage coming in and taking it. But because our current workforce isn't able to meet customer demand and is nowhere near being able to meet the state's goals for decarbonization, they're like, okay, we need your workforce to contribute here. So we might be a little unique there in that we kind of have a path to enter into this industry now that we might not have under other circumstances. That said, when it comes to our how we're training our own staff on geothermal, we're exploring opening up our trainings to outside workforce and building our capacity as a trainer in addition to doing the install work ourselves. We have to date, and we're looking at expanding the program, partnerships with contractors out there doing the work. So we've done this with natural gas for years, and we're considering doing it with our electrification work. Ground source heat pumps would fall under that, where we're not going to hire the full workforce needed to complete the work, but we develop these partnerships with other contractors where we use our relationships with our customer base to give them sort of hot leads. And we kind of can expand our workforce and provide for a better customer experience that way. The only thing really stopping us right now on that front is that the contractors with whom we'd want to partner have no capacity to take on additional work. So I don't know if our circumstances are relatable to anybody else. And I don't know if I totally answered your question, but again, I'm happy to follow up offline if you're interested in having an additional discussion.
Great conversation.
Thank you.
Mike, you have your hand up next.
Hey, Jeff, thank you. Thank you to everybody on the panel. This question may seem a little strange, but I received a survey from someone with IGSHPA months ago about terminology and how we want to try to identify what our product is. We have been lumped in Texas now and regulated by the Railroad Commission because they view us as geothermal, the same as deep earth, steam production, energy producing technology. Heat pump, the term heat pump is a horrible term to use. To Steve's point, we are ground source heat pumps. Geothermal heat pumps still confuses people. When people ask, what do you do, Mike? And I try to explain to them it's a deer in the headlight look every single time. So part of the communications I feel really needs to be defining who we are first, setting ourselves out separately and individually from the other forms of products that are out there. And I know that I've had this discussion a little bit with Kortney and some other folks. Whatever came of the survey that was sent out, and are we going to try to redefine what we are and set ourselves out as for what we are, which is something that's completely different to what the common person knows. And I'll end on that.
You know, Mike, I'm glad you mentioned that. That survey was from NREL, National Renewable Energy Labs. They couldn't send it out directly because they actually had a contract with a government agency. They're one of the national labs. So they asked IGSHPA to use our database to be able to get the word out. And so they've compiled that information, and they're using that for consideration of the next GeoVision report. I think there was one in 2018, maybe, if I remember right, 2019, sometime around there, that Department of Energy commissioned. So they are concerned about terminology as well. And we've had some discussions with GeoExchange. So I don't know what the answer is today, but I love the conversation. I think we need to keep talking about, what is that terminology? We are the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association, so I guess we're a bit biased, but one of the really cool things about our new committee, the Advocacy and Communications Taskforce, is that keeps coming up over and over again. We seem to have a desire to use geothermal on the marketing side and ground source heat pump on the technical side. So I think we have to really determine how that works. ASHRAE just, in their last update of one of the handbooks, changed all the instances of geothermal with the ground source heat pump. And the new edition of the binational ANSI CSA IGSHPA standard is all changed to ground source heat pump. So I think those are great comments. I wish we had an answer today, but these kind of conversations I think will help us get there. So thank you so much, Mike. Jeffrey has his hand up.
Hey, can I comment real quick though?
Oh, of course, Kortney.
So I would say that even to the whatever we use to call what we do, education is a big hurdle. So using IGSHPA as a resource is incredible. And what IGSHPA has to offer in the training world is second to no one in the industry as far as geothermal is concerned, and is continuing to make improvements to that every day. But I would say as an industry, we do a really bad job of talking to the general public about what we do, right? Like, how many people could explain what we do for a living in a way that their grandma would understand, right? Like, we have to stop talking about this in a way that we all understand because we are so passionate. Like, I literally preface any conversation I have about geothermal by saying, I will talk about this until you don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm so in love with what I do for a living. I tend to miss the point that I have to talk to someone in a way that they can understand it, right? I mean, let's be honest, how many of us have explained what we do for a living by using the refrigerator analogy, right? Like, oh, this is how a heat pump works, right? But in reality, we have to do a better job of educating people that it isn't scary. Whether it's to Rob's point and bringing new contractors into the industry, a lot of people just don't understand it, and so they don't care, right? It's unseen, whereas our electrical counterparts in solar and wind, you can go out and touch a solar panel. You can go out and touch a wind turbine. It's a little on faith that we're putting a ground loop in that's going to work and it's going to be used to heating and cool. And how many times do people say, well, how can you possibly heat? The ground's only 50 degrees, right? It's a burden on us as an industry to take a step back and really talk about it in a way that our kids can understand, that anyone you talk to on an everyday basis can understand what we do. And we have to avoid terms as much as we all love them, like COP and EER. Nobody cares about that. Even when you talk about your car, you don't say MPG, right? You talk about the miles per gallon. You actually explain what that means. So as an industry, we have to get better at wrapping our arms around everybody, bringing them into the fold, making everyone feel welcome in this group, and then explaining to them in a way that they can comprehend what we do for a living and how it works. Because once they get it, they'll be just as passionate about it as we are.
Those are great comments, and I'm glad we are we have our ACT committee members on this call, so they have an additional to-do list that keeps getting longer, which is good. So thank you, Mike and Kortney. Maybe we need to have an IGSHPA placard or something like that on the yard, or I'll put a sign above my loop or something like that. I don't know. Great conversation, but seriously, that's super important. We have some other hands up. Jeffrey is next.
Yeah, as a contractor right in Morgan's backyard in Vermont, the challenge for me in building workforce is consistency. And with the tax credits up and down, I've heard several discussions about that. We sold them when there was no tax credit, but they were only to people that really wanted to be green. And then in 17, the whole industry goes away and we just go back to water wells again. So as a contractor, and I'm purchasing equipment that costs more than $1 million per piece, to put the effort into that and to train people, we need consistency in the industry. And to the utilities point of view, that to me is the consistency that the industry has lacked over time. So if we have that, we will build the workforce. I will invest money. I will invest millions of dollars into equipment and personnel. But I've got to know as a business owner then I'm going to get a return on that. And my efforts have not very well been rewarded here in the past by the federal government, the tax credit situations. The technology is great. I have the technology in all my buildings, and it's very comfortable. I'm very in tune with what's going on. I have been certified, accredited in geothermal since I went to Oklahoma. I have been involved in the industry for almost 30 years now. I do residential and small commercial design work. So I'm very familiar with the process, but we've got to have that consistency. So I'm looking forward to a meeting maybe with Morgan next week and talking about how we can deploy that and how we can take this to the next level. But it's going to take some time. But we're willing to put the effort in as long as the consistency is there. Thank you guys all for your time and your input.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Those are great comments. And I think discussions like this are super helpful to putting things in perspective. So we have a lot of work to do for sure. Stephen, you have your hand up next.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. The utility committee and Geo Exchange organization have developed some utility outreach tools. We have a Geo 101 training program that's now available through IGSHPA that can be utilized to reacquaint and re-educate cooperatives and other utilities to the benefits of geothermal. We're also introducing what we call a Geo for Co-ops program that helps them upgrade or even start a geothermal incentive program at their cooperative. So through those efforts, and these are tools that will be available to state level organizations and to individual contractors to use to help build that utility relationship within their own market areas.
Thank you. Yeah, it pays to be an IGSHPA member. Make sure your membership is current. We'd love to have your input and work on committees and things like that. Carl, your hand is up next. Carl Oreo, are you available? I see you're muted. Okay. We'll come back to Carl. Ray, you're next.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, committee, for all your effort and all your work. I'd like to say to Kris, though, if you're thinking about retiring in a few years, you're not really bit by the geothermal industry. I'll be 76 next month, and I'm still sitting in my office, and going out to jobs. So you're not bit yet, or you wouldn't be wanting to retire. I'm like Kortney. I'm made up with geothermal, and I'll talk to anybody, any place, anytime, as long as you want to. And I'm thankful for that, because we have the best industry there is. I truly believe in it. And I've said over and over, and finally I did it this week. We've got to talk to the kids. We got to educate. Education is the key, and we have to go young. And we have volunteered. I have volunteered Oscar, that works for us, to go to the school, our local school, and give a program on geothermal and HVAC equipment to try to get young people interested into getting in to our industry, either into the drilling side, because we do all of it, but either in the drilling side or in the mechanical side. And I think that's what Kortney, you need to do. I think, Morgan, that's what you need to do. I think that's what all of us need to do, is we need to go to our local schools and start educating those young kids. And this program starts with 6th graders, and then it goes all the way through high school. But we have to get them interested in the geothermal. And I agree with Kortney about when Sherry and I go to shows, Sherry will talk to a lot of the ladies, and of course her husband's just standing beside them, and she will not get into the technical part, and she'll sell more jobs than I will, because she's got the lady involved and she's not talking about technical things. And then she'll just turn and say, if you want to know more technical things, we need to talk to Ray. And so a lot of people, because see, I'll go down rabbit holes talking about the technical things. And a lot of people don't want to know that. They just want to know it works. and a little bit about the basics instead of the deep hole. And so I think education, education, education. And if you've got any slides or any, Jeff, if you got anything that can help us with that, or anybody does, you know, that where we can start simple with the kids to get them. I mean, you know, it's so neat. We did this at a school years ago, and I don't know why we quit, but it was so neat to hear the kids go home and say, Mom, Dad, how come we don't have geothermal? Did you know it's more efficient? You know, did you know that we're wasting money? You know, and it's just neat. And so I'll get off of here, but I just want to say, Kris, you're not bit yet where you wouldn't be wanting to retire. And the other thing that I'd like to just say is that to the manufacturers, and of course, everybody gets tired of me saying this, is we have to build a better box that's more dependable and lasts longer. Because that's what I have seen has happened from our manufacturers. We all want the highest efficiency thing that we possibly can, and we all want to brag about we got, you know, our EERs and COPs of this, but we're making them so difficult and so technical that they're not lasting. You know, I still have an ATV 045. That was a water furnace unit made in the early 90s that's still running and has never had a hand touching it since we've installed it, except changing the filter. And I have more units in the last 5, 6 years, 7 years that I have more problems with because their boards and all the technology that's in them, and people are getting discouraged because it costs a lot to go out there and work on that piece of equipment, or that board costs a lot of money to replace, and it's a long waiting period for them. And so we need to build a better box. Anybody wants to invest your money with me, I'll be glad to build the deadgum things, but that has contactors, relays, sensors, coactuator heat exchanger, air coil, fan motor. Let's get it simple, because I'm just going to say this. In my opinion, the reason we went away from that is because the manufacturers was having to sell more equipment and they wasn't selling any parts. And now they can sell a lot of parts.
Sorry to interrupt, Ray. I great comments. I appreciate it. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We're about 34 minutes after the hour. So great opportunity to have some incredible discussions, and I appreciate our panelists. This has been really a great exchange of information. Sorry we didn't get to everybody who had questions, but I think we've learned that we might need to do more of these open exchanges versus presentations, and hope everyone has a great rest of the week. This will be recorded, so we'll be able to review some of this discussion and see how we want to plan for the future. If you do have an idea for a town hall, certainly let us know. And I appreciate everyone. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks all.
Great discussion, everybody.